This is Abhishek Sengupta. Would you like to take your company to the next level? To the level where you can go for IPO or initial public offer? And to make your company listed in the share market? Then this is the video for you. Because in this video, I am taking up the topic of public limited companies. This is Abhishek Sengupta and welcome back. Now, we are on with our business series, and especially in this series, we have taken up the topic of company formation. In our previous episodes, we discussed about the company formation, pros and cons of company formation, the traditional partnership company, sole proprietorship company, the private limited company, and in this particular episode, I am taking up the topic of public limited company. Now, if any of you would like to see the details of this series, can simply click on the I button above and check that. If you would like to see any of the previous episodes, simply go to the description of this video. I have given you the links of those episodes in that. Simply click on that and see them. In this episode, I am taking up the topic of public limited company. At the end, I have also taken up the topic of insider trading. So this is going to be interesting. So it is important for you to stay till the end. Now, first thing first, what is a public limited company? The public limited company is a type of company whose shares can be traded publicly in the stock market. Anyone can pick those shares. Now, this type of company must have a certain number of shareholders and certain number of founders. This varies from country to country as per the rules of the land. Now, anyone can buy its shares. They can either buy it publicly using initial public offer or IPO, or it can even be bought from the share market. Such kind of companies are owned by the shareholders. That means it doesn't have a single owner. The ownership is distributed amongst a large number of people. Now, this buying or selling of the shares of such kind of companies are regulated by the market regulator of that specific country. Now, one interesting thing is that at times a situation might come up wherein the founder of the company might lose the control of the company. Now, let us understand the concept of the public limited company across the globe. Firstly, let's start with India. As per Company Act 2013, this kind of company offered limited liability and its share can be traded publicly. That means anyone can pick up the share or buy their shares either privately through initial public offer or IPO or by trading in the stock market. That means its share can be owned or bought by the general public. Such kind of companies have a mandate of publishing their financial statements at the end of the financial year. Such type of companies write LTD as abbreviation at the end of their name. Now, in United Kingdom, such kind of companies are defined as a type of company whose shares are traded publicly and can be owned by the general public. As per UK law, as per the jurisdiction of certain Commonwealth states and the laws of Republic of Ireland, they must have a minimum capital of £50,000. The abbreviation used here is PLC at the end of the company name. In United States of America, such kind of companies are known as publicly held company or publicly traded companies. Now, here it is defined as the companies whose shares can be traded publicly. Here it is defined as a company whose ownership is organized by shares of stock which are intended to be freely traded in the stock market. These companies generally have PHC as abbreviation after its name. In France, it is known as Société Anonyme and abbreviated as SA. Here it is defined as the company which can trade its share publicly in the stock market. Here, shareholders may choose to remain anonymous and receive dividends accordingly. Dividend is given to the person having the share certificate. Here, the certificate can be transferred to other person as well. Presently, shareholders can no longer remain anonymous. In Austria, in Germany, in Switzerland, and in Luxembourg, it is known as Aktiengesellschaft and abbreviated as AG. This is the German term for corporation. This term is used in Austria, this is used in Germany, this is used in Switzerland and Luxembourg. In most simple term, this is defined as a corporation whose shares can be owned publicly and shares can be traded publicly in the stock market. In Australia, this is defined as a company which have 50 non-employee shareholders and whose shares are available to public by being listed in financial market. It must have 2 directors and 1 secretary. Now next, let us discuss the features of a public limited company. Number 1. Public limited company acts as a separate legal entity from its shareholders and members. Number 2. Its formation, its operation, its trading and winding up are strictly regulated as per rules and regulations of the country. Number 3. A company must have minimum number of members or shareholders. However, there is no limit on the maximum number of members. Number 4. Company collect revenue by share selling or the sale of shares, and the people buying it become the shareholders of the company. Number 5. The transfer of shares are allowed freely. However, these transfer or buying and selling of the shares are governed by the rules of the land. Number 6. The liability of each shareholder is limited to the face value of the share he or she owns. Number 7. Generally, the shareholders of the company do not have rights to get into the day-to-day affairs of the company. Generally, such kind of companies are run by board and all decisions of the board are taken by the majority vote. Company acts as a separate legal identity from its shareholders. That means death, insolvency or retirement of the shareholders do not affect the affairs of the company. Number 9. As per Company Act 2013, a public limited company has its mandate to call for an annual general meeting. Now this varies from country to country, but annual general meeting has to be called and the financial statement of the company has to be presented to its shareholder on a mandatory basis. Now let us discuss the characteristics of a public limited company. Number 1. Directors. A minimum number of directors or shareholders are required for the formation of the company. The number varies from country to country as per the rules laid by that particular country. In India, the number of directors required to form the public limited company is 3. In Australia, the number is 2, and so on. Number 2 is limited liability. Now, the shareholders of the company are not personally responsible for its loss or death of the company. The liability of each member of the company is limited to the face value of the share he or she holds. This is unlike the sole proprietorship company or traditional partnership companies. Number 3 is paid up capital. Public limited company has to have a minimum paid up capital. Now this figure varies from country to country. In India, it is 5 lakh rupees or 500,000 rupees. Whereas in United Kingdom, it is 50,000 pounds and so on. Number 4 is prospectus. Prospectus is the comprehensive statement of affairs of the company. This is issued by the company to its shareholders. Now this is mandatory under the laws of the land. Number 5, name. Now for public limited companies, it is mandatory to add an abbreviation after its name. Now this abbreviation differs from country to country. In India, it is LTD. In United Kingdom, it is PLC. In France, it is SA. In Germany, in Switzerland, in Luxembourg, it is AG, and so on. Public limited companies have got a lot of advantages and disadvantages too. So let's discuss the advantages for a public limited company. Let's see. Number one, the first advantage of a public limited company is raising capital. Now, such kind of companies can trade its shares to the general public in the stock exchange. Now, as the public becomes the investors, so the capital raised from the market is much larger. Anyone, even you and me, can invest in such kind of companies. So this company has got a lot of scope for raising capital. Apart from raising capital from public, these kind of companies even attract investors from hedge funds, can attract investors from mutual funds, can attract investors from different institutional traders, etc., etc. So the raising capital or scope of raising capital for such kind of company is quite huge. They can even raise additional capital by issuing debentures and bonds from the same market to the public. Now, debenture and bonds are unsecured debt issued to a company on the basis of its integrity and financial performance. So overall, the scope of raising capital for such kind of companies are quite huge. Number two is wide shareholder base and spreading the risk. Now, offering shares to the general public makes the general public the owner of such kind of companies. Now, this spreads the risk of ownership amongst a large number of shareholders. Now, this has its own advantage as a company do not depend on one or two investors for its financial need. As the ownership of the company gets divided to a huge base of shareholders, so the risk of ownership too gets divided amongst the shareholders. So this is an additional advantage to such kind of companies. Number three, other financial opportunities. Now, a public limited company is better placed while looking for funds or potential financial sources. Now, maintaining a stock market listing helps in companies' credit worthiness. This is an additional advantage while issuing corporate debt. Number four, growth and expansion opportunities. As the public limited companies have got more options for funding, so the scope of diversification, scope of growth, and scope of expansion is quite huge. Such kind of companies are a preferred option for merger and acquisition. Number five, the prestigious profile. Now, adding a public limited company abbreviation at the end of the company name makes the profile of the company prestigious. This gives the perspective of being big, being strong, being stable, and being established in the market. Now, such kind of companies receive more attention from media and investors. This leads to a brand recognition for such kind of companies. Now, the credibility and the confidence are reinforced by number one, operation under stricter legal regime. Number two, higher share capital requirement. Number three, greater transparency of accounts. Number four, indirect endorsement because of being listed in the share market. Number six, share transfer. The shares of the public limited company can easily get transferred from one person to other person as compared to its private limited equivalent. That means the shareholders of the company can then reap the benefits of the liquidity in the market. Number seven, a structured run by a well-defined board. Now, public limited company is headed by a board of directors. The composition of board of director is set in the article of association of the company. This varies from country to country. Now, this board is elected by the shareholders of the company from the shareholders of the company during the annual general meeting. They act as a representation of shareholders in the management of the company. Number 8. Lifespan. A public limited company is not affected by the death of a shareholder. Now, in case of a death of the shareholder, the shares of that shareholder can be transferred to its kin as per his or her hereditary norm, whereas the company's day-to-day affair can go on as usual. Number 9. Exit. A shareholder can easily make an exit from the company by selling his or her share or transferring as well. Now, the person who gets the share becomes the shareholder of the company, and the person who sold the share or transferred the share is removed from the shareholding of the company. This is quite easy as compared to any other form of the company. So exit is an easy process in public limited companies. Now, let us discuss the disadvantages of a public limited company. Number 1 is high cost. The initial financial commitment for a public limited company is much higher as compared to its private limited companies. A firm banker or an underwriter offers the initial shares to the public, and for this they charge a hefty commission. The other costs like setting up the company, going into IPO, or general running cost of this kind of company too runs quite high. Number 2 is complicated regulatory requirements. The legal and compliance requirement of this kind of company is quite complicated and tough to understand. When a company is listed, it has to follow the rules and regulations laid down by the market regulator. Understanding and following such kind of complicated rule requires time and money. One need to appoint consultants, manpower, and most importantly, on a mandatory basis, a company secretary. Number 3 is open financial statement. Every year, as a mandate, public limited companies have to disclose their financial statements. Now, as the financial statements gets disclosed, so lot of information about company too gets disclosed. This may include profit and loss, this may include assets and liabilities, this may include capital, debt, loans, etc. Now all this information are open to public. These all informations are regularly scrutinized by various government agencies, news channels, chamber of commerce, shareholders, and business associations. Number 4 is ownership and control issues. A public limited company is harder to control and administer as compared to private limited companies because the size of this kind of company is quite large. Number of owners are quite huge. At times, it is difficult to ascertain whom the directors of the company are accountable to. There is always a common situation when the founding members or the directors lose the control of the company. There are high chances of disputes and disagreements. One has to spend a lot of time managing its shareholders. Institutional shareholders can exert a lot of influence on the day-to-day affairs of the company. They often expect adoption of certain policies or practices in return of their investments. Number 5 is vulnerable to takeover. Now, public limited companies are quite vulnerable to hostile takeovers if majority of shareholders agree to a bid. With shares being freely transferable, a potential bidder can build up a shareholding in advance of launching a bid attempt. Number 6 is short-term emphasis. In public limited companies, there are a lot of pressure exerted by the market for the company's shares face value. Investors will always expect a healthy return and regular dividends, so they will always expect a good share price. So this compels a public limited company to focus on short-term things which can keep the share prices or the face value of the shares high. This may divert the management of the company from the long-term goals. Number 7, insider trading. Now, insider trading in the most simple way can be explained as the sensitive information passed on by an inside person of the company based on which the trading of the share happens. Now, this is a very vast topic, so let us discuss this topic in details. Insider trading, in most simple term, can be defined as the trading of shares of a company by an insider based on the information related to the shares of the company. That means buying or selling the shares of the company based on the impactful information about the company. Before we get deep into this concept, let us define two concepts. Number one is UPSI and number two is insider. Now, first, let's understand UPSI. Now, what is UPSI? UPSI is the abbreviation of unpublished price-sensitive information. UPSI are those kind of information which are not made public, but due to this, the prices of the share might get impacted. This could be unpublished quarterly results, this could be the unpublished merger or acquisition information, major company expansion information, probable shutdown plans, or any other information which are not disseminated in public but that can affect the price of the shares of the company. So this is what we call it UPSI or unpublished price sensitive information. Now let us understand the second concept as insider. Question comes, what is an insider? Now the SEBI, the market regulator of India, defines insider as a person inside the company who has got an access to the sensitive information which can impact the price of the shares of the company. Insider can be anyone associated to the company 6 months preceding the insider trade. This can be directors of the company, this can be the employees of the company, legal counsel of the company, banker, officials of stock exchange, trustees, asset managers, etc., or even a close relative of all these people. Let us understand this concept with an example. An employee of the company who has got an access to the sensitive information while having his dinner, he tells that information to his father. Next day, his father goes and tells that information to his friend while having coffee with him. Now the father's friend goes back to his house and reveals that information to his son. Now his son, based on that information, buys a huge share of the company. Now in this situation, who all can be charged for violation of insider trading norms? Number one, the employee. Number two, employee's father. Number three, father's friend. Number four, friend's son. Almost all countries in the world have their own rules for controlling the insider trading practices. However, all insider trading is not considered as illegal. In most of the countries, only the trading based on UPSI is considered as illegal. Now, let us understand it with an example. A senior member of the company who is also a shareholder of the company. Now, it is quite obvious that such kind of people will have access to many sensitive information which can have an impact on the share prices of the company. Now, he, because of any personal reason, sells his share or transacts with his share. Now, if that transaction is as per the laws of the market regulator, as per the laws of the land, now such kind of transaction might not be considered as a violation of insider trading norms. At the same time, company also has to report the trading details of a founder or a director to the market regulator if it exceeds a certain amount. Insider trading hurts the integrity of the company and it also hurts the integrity of the capital market. It hurts the reputation of the company, which take years to get built. Companies have their own ways, rules and regulation to restrict the flow of information and to prevent the insider trading. As we all know, the shares of such kind of company can be easily sold and bought in the market. At the same time, the shares can be easily transferred within the shareholders of the company. This is governed and regulated by the rules of the market regulator of the respective country. In India, it is called Stock and Exchange Board of India, or SEBI. In United States of America, it is called Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. In United Kingdom, it is called Financial Conduct Authority, or FCA. In Australia, it is known as the Council of Financial Regulations, or CFR. In New Zealand, it is called Financial Market Authority, or FMA. In Singapore, it is Accounts and Corporate Regulatory Authority, or ACR. A public limited company need to abide by the rules of the market regulating authority of the respective country. That's all for today. Now, if you have any question, please write in the comment section below, or you can even ping me in my social media profiles. If you got value from this episode, I request you to please like, share and subscribe. I'll be back with many such episodes. Till then, stay tuned, stay connected, have a great day.